There is a lot in the papers that are dominating on the Spurs results. Now, we knew going into this game, 9 games in a row that Spurs had conceded the first goal. Now, they have won the most amount of points from losing positions in the Premier League. So actually, when they went a goal behind, like they did against Aston Villa, even a second goal behind, like they did against Aston Villa, if you weren't actually watching the game, you might have thought, well, we know what Spurs do. They fight back. They did it against Brentford, obviously, on Boxing Day. But that wasn't the case at all. Let me just read you some of the headlines that are dominating the papers. The Times are going with, "We can't compete," says Conte. Antonio Conte says Tottenham may have to settle for a place outside the top 4 after their 2-0 loss to Aston Villa yesterday. From what you've seen of Spurs, Cass, is that really the situation that Spurs fans should be waking up to this morning, realising actually they're not in the position to be competing in the top 4?
Well, Nat, this has been coming. This is nothing new. You witnessed it at your own hands watching Brentford go 2-0 up against Spurs, and they got away with it. Did it against Leeds, at the Tottenham Stadium. They were behind. Ben Davies gets a goal out of nowhere, outside the box. This has been coming. This is no surprise to Tottenham fans of this result yesterday. I think Villa fans are obviously upbeat. They've had a change of manager. And there's something about Antonio Conte that sometimes just grinds with me about. I don't even need to listen to the interview to know what's going to be coming. And that is so predictable, where the foundations have not been in place, the money that we have to buy these particular players. Now, you've got a forward line that is, top level. And you've got players that have been brought in that can do a good job. Bentancur's a good footballer. Obviously Kulusevski is another one, and not all of them played all the time. Yeah. That back line is hopeless. There's only 2 defenders at Spurs I'd want to keep. That's Romero and Ben Davies.
Okay.
If you said to me, of all the defenders at Spurs, I don't think they're nowhere near to the level of what needs to be a Champions League team.
Are you including Hugo Lloris in that discussion?
Yeah, I feel a bit unkind because, look, I got stick as a player, and rightly so at times. And I always used to think, well, when I cross the white line, I'll only compete prove people wrong. That was my only answer to criticism. And I've not been a fan of Lloris for a long time. I think he's not good with the ball at his feet. I think he produces really good reaction saves, but he makes blunders, and you feel like you have to be careful. He's a World Cup winner. But there are World Cup winners that weren't particularly very good players, as in, look, of course he's a good goalkeeper. But am I talking a goalkeeper? I remember doing a column on Lloris about 4 or 5 years ago and saying, I don't believe that they'll win a trophy. And I meant serious, obviously the League Cup is a trophy that he could win. But I meant a trophy of Premier League, Champions League with Lloris in goal. Right. Maybe I'm unfair, but I just don't think he's a goalkeeper. I think he's actually been fortunate to survive so long as a Tottenham number 1.
I mean, obviously he was at fault for the first goal in spilling it, which Ollie Watkins was able to capitalise upon and then set up Emi Buendia to put Villa ahead in that game. And the problem is, inevitably, when you have a result like this, we tend to focus on a team like Tottenham rather than on Aston Villa, who deserves so much credit. They had lost, obviously, their Boxing Day fixture coming into this, but played really, really well. And we should give them much more credit than really we are giving, because we're focusing so much more on Spurs. Yeah,
I mean, look, the story is Spurs because, they everyone knows the stats now of the numbers. Villa had twice as many shots than Spurs did yesterday at, the Tottenham Stadium. That in itself tells a story. That Tottenham have become quite easy to play against, and they're a side that I think are so predictable and so conservative in their style. I can't believe how they've not lost more games this season. And I said early on the year, Nat, and me and you were on air, and I got stick for saying it, they're a hard watch, and they have been a hard watch. And they've managed to drag themselves, and that's fair credit to the manager and the team, that they've dragged themselves out of bad scenarios. But this was one too many. And I don't believe Tottenham fans can be happy for what they've seen this season. I feel they're quite fortunate to have 30 points.
Well, you say that. They've lost 5 games. They've won 9 of their 17 so far. 30 points, like you say. It sees them in 5th in some ways you might look at that and go, look, there's more than half of a season still to go. So the season is not lost. They're only 2 points off Manchester United, having played, though, a game more.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.